everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, 5 Ways to Make Waves with Informatica and Salesforce Analytics. Today, it's me, Anwesa Chatterjee, Director of Product Marketing at Informatica, and with me is Ron Lunasin. He's Senior Director of Product Management at Informatica.
Hi, Anwesa.
Hey. So before we jump in, I would like to go through the agenda for the session. And we would start with a brief overview of how Informatica and Salesforce combines together to bring the best analytics for our customers. And we will discover some challenges and solutions, how it works out best. And then we would go into the 5 ways or 5 phases in which generally our customers use Informatica to implement any Salesforce Wave Analytics project. And we'll have a short demo from Ron. And after that, we have a section for Q&A, so please keep your questions till that point. Stay tuned till the end to find out about a special launch that we are doing around the Salesforce Wave bundle. With that, let's dive in. So with Salesforce Wave, it is the next big wave for our whole ecosystem, for the world. And why is that? The first big wave, or a wave which is called, the Great Wave of Kanagwa, was a picture on a wooden block, and that was called the Great Wave. The next big wave is Salesforce Analytics. Why? Because it's the platform which brings all the data, huge volume, and from different data sources on one platform for analytics. And what helps it is Informatica. So many companies are investing in the top customer programs to accelerate their revenue and growth rates. And they're doing that by shifting their approach to their top 20, 30, or 50 customers, from a very transactional sales relationship to that of a strategic partners or with shared success. And those kind of strategic partnership or understanding your customers, that kind of approach requires a complete view of the relationship, a complete view of the customer's relationship, and also a view of how the business is running internally, and to gather the information across employees, partners, customers. It's not a very simple process. There are different complex legacy systems involved, different data sources involved. And this kind of sophistication is basically triggering the need for a very high level enterprise grade integration, which would bring clean and secure data. And that's where Informatica enables Salesforce Wave Analytics to deliver the powerful insights from clean and connected data. So when I just discussed about the breadth of data coming, to accessible to all these different enterprises, the huge volume, and then the different data sources. So the need to actually store all these data and then get the right insights from this data to make better decisions. That's the focus right now for most of the industries and most of the organizations. So traditionally, something like this would involve a huge IT team to actually deploy the enterprise ERP, data warehouses, or something like SAP, Oracle, and then load this data in very traditional data stores or data marts, and then do modeling on top of that. If you remember the InfoCube and star schemas of those days, and then, come back and stage the data for regular reporting, batch reporting. That was something that was there traditionally, and that whole process took 4 to 6 months. But things have changed drastically right now, and our users, our customers need speed, need real-time data, and need access to huge volume of data. so that they can build inside the 360-degree view across their business, understand their customers, and also have their employees understand each and every relationship with the customers. So it ranges from the frontline employees all the way to the boardroom. And currently, with Salesforce Wave Analytics, it can be done within weeks. And that's where Informatica helps our users. By users, let's go to the next slide. It means the users can be IT focused, where the ones that are actually building it out, the IT team is going to integrate and complex on-prem apps, legacy data warehouses with other applications or cloud data or cloud apps. So it's the role of the IT, which is not changed essentially, but IT has become more agile and more focused on collaborating with all the different business users. Now, there's another segment of users who are admins or business analysts, and they're the ones who would do the data loading and creating the 360-degree view and bringing in the right data. And the right data is something that's used by our business users who are actually responsible to look at those dashboards, and then those dashboards help them to make decisions to help the business grow, or forecasting, for example, or if you're in marketing, then it's understanding your pipeline, and if you're in service, then understanding what's SLA, which is the region that needs more help, and understanding how your customers can be served better. So those are some of the examples. Now, if we go to the next slide, then it kind of talks a little bit on how this architecture is built upon. So if I divide the screen into two parts, then you're going to see at the bottom and the top part, it's around the cloud, right? So there are all these different cloud applications like NetSuite and social media, maybe some cloud apps like Workday, and of course Salesforce. So these data are used by Informatica Cloud. It's integrated and used by Informatica Cloud. And then again, on the bottom side are the legacy systems and the legacy traditional data warehouses. So there are two parallel levels that enterprises can have. They can have the on-prem data warehouse, which is pulling data from legacy systems. They can also have the cloud data warehouse, which is pulling data from cloud apps. And they can have either one. So there is a huge range of options over there depending on the need of the customer. But the ultimate goal is to drive the analytics to a mobile-friendly and effective dashboards. That's Salesforce Wave Analytics. Whatever is done in between those two endpoints is what Informatica does, and that could be around data cleaning, data quality, or anything that we are going to go deeper today and see a good demo out of that. So the three key differentiators here that you see on the next slide is talking about that the Salesforce Analytics Cloud gives businesses an unprecedented level of insight into their customer preferences, patterns to help understand maybe what would work better. But all those analytics is only unlocked when the potential requires an ability to access all those data sources and manage that data from multiple cloud platform or on-prem platform. And the Informatica Cloud portfolio of products helps you do that. So now as we go to the next slide, so to truly gain a customer insight using Salesforce Analytics, you need to bring in customer-related data from external systems, as we just saw. It could be your ERP or PeopleSoft Workday, and this data could include many different information. It could include purchase history, demographics, relationship, preferences, etc. Now, the role of the user has changed but essentially they're still in the three segments where there is IT, there are admins and business analysts, and then there are the the business users. So the Informatica Cloud portfolio for Salesforce Wave includes integration, data quality, MDM, and all of this suite of products is enabling each and every segment of the users and anyone else to connect, relate, aggregate data from any source, and achieve in-depth customer insights. So as we go through this process, there are different phases or different ways that it's done. And that's what we're going to discuss in the next segment of the session. And I'm going to now hand it over to Ron to go over the 5 ways that Informatica works with Salesforce Wave for our customers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anwesa. Again, thanks for setting everything up for me here. Now, before I get into the demo, as Anwesa just mentioned, I do want to kind of talk through some of the 5 practical ways that we're seeing our customers jointly move together to perform new formed analytics inside of Wave. Now, as we're actually going through this, again, we'll go through we'll go through in detail the 5 steps, and we'll also go see a full detailed demo. There is that chat section within the webinar screen. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to start typing them in as you have them, and we'll either address them as we're going through the demo or the slides, or again, we'll kind of answer everything at the end through the Q&A. So definitely, if you have any questions here, feel free to start typing those in. All right, so as Anwesa mentioned, there's a lot of possibilities that we can now see with analytics through Salesforce Wave. Now, as she also mentioned, the last thing that we want to do is to go back to the traditional approach of analytics and say, great, look, we've got a new tool. It's called Salesforce Wave, and we'll get you something in 4 to 6 months. That will immediately turn off all of your end users, and nobody's going to be excited about the project. So what we've seen, some of the best ways to get your users engaged with Salesforce Wave projects is you want to get started as quickly as possible, but you don't want to pivot so heavily to that side where it's just considered a quick ad hoc prototype project and then it kind of fades away at the end. What you really want to do is get customer engagement as quickly as possible, but then put in a framework in place so that Salesforce Wave can be used for company-wide analytics as the project continues to move forward. Right? So, but what we're going to go through in these 5 steps is how to get started as quickly as you can, but lay a framework so that you can use Salesforce Wave for enterprise reporting in the future. All right, so what we've seen with Wave is as soon as somebody sees a demo of Salesforce Wave, more than likely they want to get started using it as soon as possible. So if you can start getting in the hands of your business users dashboards and reports, and especially if they're viewing it in the mobile device, you want them using it potentially as early as a few days, if not just a few weeks. So what we recommend and what we've seen a lot of our customers do is they go through essentially a prototyping phase where they want to go ahead and get the data loaded for that quick win as soon as you can. And what we typically do from an Informatica standpoint is we recommend that our customers go through essentially a data preparation phase. Get some data that your end user customers or that your internal customers want to start looking at. Just get the data in whatever form you have. Oftentimes it's available there either in flat files or maybe there's some simple database tables where you can pull the data out of. Go ahead, grab that data as quickly as you can, and then go ahead and push that in to Salesforce Wave so that people can start using it. Now, after you get through that couple-week phase of going through the prototypes, you're then going to be ready to go ahead and start to say, okay, now I'm ready to put a milestone down for our first production launch of dashboards and reports. And typically what we're seeing customers do is that's in a 4 to 6 week time frame, not a 4 to 6 month time frame. Now, in order to go ahead and move forward into a production environment, what you really want to do is productionalize not just the reports and dashboards, but of course you want to productionalize the integration of all of the important data elements so that your dashboards and reports are refreshed on a nightly, if not hourly basis. And that's where you want to go ahead and have some true integration to other systems, other maybe potentially ERP systems, marketing systems, and so forth, and integrate that with your sales data and loading that into Salesforce Wave. So again, prototyping phase, potentially just a few days, if not a couple weeks, and then move into a 4 to 6 week time frame for phase one of your production launch of Salesforce Wave. Now, to make sure that you have stickiness in your usage for Salesforce Wave, one of the key elements is you really want to gain the trust of your business users that are looking at those reports and dashboards, so that they say, okay, everything I'm looking at here is correct. And one of the key elements of making sure that you gain that trust is you need to provide data quality and have data quality processes put in place as you're loading your data into Wave. So typically you would perform some of this in phase 2 when you go into production, but phase 3, especially when you start to roll out Salesforce Wave across a larger audience, this is really where you want to make sure some of the key data elements are truly clean, concise, and deduplicated. You want to make sure that that process is in place as soon as you can after that first phase 1 launch. And after you start to get a larger community, what typically ends up happening is, especially for medium to large size organizations, there's usually one main Salesforce org, but at the same time, there's typically 2, 3, upwards of 10, sometimes even 20 Salesforce orgs that are out there. Maybe there's multiple business units, and they have each of them have their own orgs. Perhaps there has been some M&A, and some of those other Salesforce orgs are still up and being used. So what's typically next, especially for something like Salesforce Wave, you want to make sure at least your Salesforce Analytics is going to be consistent across the board. So making sure you have a single view of your opportunity funnel, even if it's across multiple orgs. That's a challenge you want to be able to solve with Salesforce Wave and with integration. You have accounts or contacts that are spread across multiple orgs. Being able to consolidate all of those, have a single definition of account, contact, and other shared objects, and being able to do reporting, consistent reporting and analytics across them, I think is very, very important. And after you solve your consistency issues across multiple Salesforce orgs, what's the true area that your customers are really going to want is consistent reporting, not just across multiple Salesforce orgs, but across all of the applications within the enterprise. So again, there's a consistent view of contact and account, not only in your CRM systems, but your marketing systems, your ERP systems, and so forth. So having a strategy in place when you get started with the Salesforce Wave project, where it's not just about let's get some initial dashboards and reports up in 4 to 6 weeks, but also setting a plan for better data quality, consistency of data across multiple Salesforce orgs and across both on-premise and Salesforce and other cloud applications is truly important when we talk about analytics. And of course, with Informatica and all the products and solutions that we provide, we can help you go through that full journey where you can start quickly, engage your business users, your Salesforce administrators, and move all the way and start working back with corporate IT to make sure that you have a holistic view and consistent view of all the data across the enterprise. All right, now, when we're talking about the demo, let's go ahead and switch over there. What I'm going to focus on, because most of you that are out there, you're likely just getting started or maybe even just looking at Salesforce Wave. So we're going to really focus on the demo on the first 2 phases. How do you get started with quick prototyping? And go ahead and get your users engaged. And then what do you need to do to go ahead and move that into phase 1 production launch? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that when we see the demo. And the first thing that I'm going to show you is a product that we call Informatica Rev. And that really is focused for that prototype use case. Potentially have your business analysts or maybe even the business users themselves go ahead and find some data elements within the organization, do a quick load into Wave so you can start looking at that. That'll be the first demo that I'll show you. The second demo that I'll then go over is to go ahead and use the full-blown Informatica Cloud offering. And what we're going to do there is actually start grabbing data from some of the enterprise data sources. the enterprise data warehouse, ERP SAP instance, and load that data into Wave and schedule it to run on a recurring basis so that, again, you have clean, consistent reporting that's being delivered on an ongoing basis. All right, so with that, again, I'm going to go ahead and start off with a demo of Informatica Rev. That's the data preparation phase for loading data into Wave. And what you should all see on the screen is Salesforce. And I'm currently in the Sales app. I'm going to go ahead and switch the context over to Wave Analytics. Okay, so for those of you that haven't seen Wave before, we've dropped into Wave Analytics, and there's a bunch of pre-built apps and dashboards that I've already got here in my org. But typically when people get started, what you would do is you would hit the Create button, and you would create what's known as a data set, and that's where the data is actually loaded into the analytics system itself. And typically, you would start off with grabbing data from your Salesforce org, or maybe there's CSV files within the organization that you want to load data into Wave. But we also see there's a button here for Informatica Rev. Now, if I go ahead and click on this here, if this is the first time that you were clicking this, which is what we're seeing here, we want to go ahead and allow this to happen. So once you do that, what we're basically doing is we're going through what's known as a single sign-on capability, where you can leverage Informatica Rev directly from inside of Wave. So again, there's no registration that needs to be done separately. You just dropped right in, and you have access to Informatica Rev. Okay? So now what I can do is create a new project. Now, the quick demo that I'm going to go over is I'm going to go ahead and take data from a trade show file, right? So we had a trade show last month, and we had what we noticed is people that came to our booth at the trade show, we actually noticed that there were some folks with current open opportunities that actually came by the booth. And at the booth, we actually had a survey that we asked the question, when do you plan to get started with your project? Now, from a funnel analytics standpoint, that kind of information is gold, right? If a customer is actually saying, hey, I want to get my project started in the next 1 to 2 months, that is a huge buying signal that we should be closing that deal sooner rather than later, right? So we want to add that information to our opportunity data and load that data into Wave for analysis. Okay, so this will be my trade show data load. And this will be an analytics project. And the first thing that I want to do actually is let's first pull in the data from Salesforce. So let's grab the opportunity data first. So I go ahead and click on Salesforce, and again, leveraging single sign-on, we just drop right into my org, and we see all standard and custom objects that are there. Now what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and grab the standard opportunity object. And we've gone ahead and are pulling that data in. Now, as we're pulling the data into Informatica Rev, what you're going to notice here is we actually go through a full data profiling on the data. So we're grabbing the data, we're recognizing which columns are going to be there, what are the various data types, and we're going to see a data-centric view of the data. Okay, so it's being loaded here. And we see the different columns that are there. We can add optional filters if we wanted to. But again, I'm going to go ahead and just hit search. And we'll go ahead and import. Actually, let me do this. This is the wrong Salesforce org. So let me log out and log back in just to be sure I'm in the right org. Okay, good. All right, so back to Wave Analytics. Go to Create. Got my data sets, Informatica Rev. And we'll go ahead and get started here. sure. Okay, good. Okay, so again, what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the opportunity object, and then what we're going to do is do some basic cleanup of the data. We want to prepare it for our analysis. And then we're going to go ahead and join the data with my trade show flat file. So here, trade show upload. And we'll go to Salesforce. We'll pick opportunity. And we're going to go ahead and just choose all of the columns, and we'll go ahead and import that data in. Okay, as we see the data being loaded here, again, what you notice is we've got a very data-centric view of my data. We see all of the columns, we can add filters, we see the various data types that we've been detecting here. And what we'll also see is once I pull in the import, we also are going to make recommendations on how to start cleaning the data or preparing the data so that we can do analysis on it. A perfect example are the two that we've chosen here. Delete 4 columns with 1 value. So by hovering over this recommendation, we go ahead and see the columns that are listed. And these, of course, are going to be of no value to me from an analytics standpoint. There's just defaulted values that are in there. So let's just go ahead and get rid of those 4 columns. All right, so let's also get rid of course, your 2 blank columns. That's not going to do us any good. So we'll go ahead and remove those. All right, so now I can go ahead and pull in my CSV file. This is going to be my trade show data. So we'll pull in our badge scans, and we'll import that. What we see now is that another tab has been created here inside of my Rev project, and we see all of the data coming from the trade show. Now, we've all been to trade shows. Scanners never work. You get clicked multiple times. There's actually a lot of duplicates in this data. So before I start moving forward, let's go ahead and clean up the data, and let's resolve duplicates in this sheet. And it's went ahead, and because we've profiled the data, we recognize there are what's known as 19 perfect duplicates. And what a perfect duplicate is if there's a full match across the rows. So again, when you have trade show data, you've been scanned multiple times, perfect example of this. Having perfect duplicates also implies, of course, that we have imperfect duplicates. And that's where IBM and I.B.M, we would find those matches as well. All right, so I've gone ahead and cleaned up my trade show file. I've cleaned up my opportunity object. I'm actually now ready to go ahead and combine the sheets together. So this is where I'm going to take the data from the trade show and apply it and connect it directly to my opportunity. So we go ahead and click OK. For those of you familiar with Excel and VLOOKUP, that's essentially what we're doing here, except we're not making you create the VLOOKUP formula. Because we've profiled the data, we've automatically detected that because of the data elements and what's there, we recognize what the natural join is occurring within the data. And we've automatically identified the columns where we're going to find the match. If you don't like the columns that we've chosen, you can always change the key or the join criteria. But in this case, I like what we've found here. And then under results, we're performing what's known as a full outer join. We're grabbing all the rows from both data sets. But I really only want where there's a full overlap or rows matching in both or an inner join. So I only have that checkbox chosen, and I'll go ahead and hit Combine. So now this tab has Salesforce data joined directly to that flat file. Now, before I go ahead and move this data into Wave for analysis, if I go ahead and click on this field here, expected usage, this is that survey result that we had, we've asked at the trade show booth. And we see all the different values that our customers have chosen that was there on the survey. But when I want my sales folks to actually start doing something with this data, we really want them focused really only on 2 main categories: soon or in the future, or unknown if they haven't specified it. But soon, we want to make soon be the bucket for anything that looks like the customer wants to get started this quarter. anything outside the quarter is in the future. So we've got all these values. Let's go ahead and change 1 to 2 months, and instead of having it be that, we want those to all be now known as soon. So the 24 rows that had 1 to 2 months will now be added to the 9 rows in soon, so we've got a total of 33. 6+ months, nope, that's in the future. Don't need to worry about that right now. And then lastly, 3 to 6 months. Again, we only want to focus on what's in the quarter, so let's also put this in the future bucket. Okay, great. So we've got now just 3 values. So when our end users are looking at this inside of Wave, they will only see those 3. One thing to note, all the steps that I've gone through so far, they're all being stored in what's known as a sheet recipe. Right? So there's step-by-step guide of what I've gone through. It's all being stored here inside of Rev. What this means is that if I wanted to run this again with next month's trade show data and I want to get an update from Salesforce Opportunity at that time, we don't have to go through this process all over again. By simply refreshing the file and refreshing Opportunity, it'll go through all of the steps that we've gone through already. We can actually also schedule these recipes to run on a nightly basis if we wanted to do that. And also, we can also email these projects or these recipes to other users. So if you wanted to share your work with other users in the organization, you have that possibility as well. Okay, so before I go ahead and move this into Wave, just a couple more things. Customer state, by clicking on this, we've done some data profiling on the data, so we recognize that this column looks like a U.S. state. So it's gone ahead and overlaid that on a U.S. map, and we also make the suggestion when we want to validate this as a U.S. state. So if you're doing segmentation, or if you want to, again, split up based off of territory, this is something you would definitely want to do with your data. Okay. So from there, we're ready to go ahead and load this data into Wave. Now, before I do that, let's just change the sheet name, and we'll call this Trade Show Opti. And all I need to do now is just go ahead and hit the Import button, choose Salesforce Analytics, and you see that we've gone ahead and exported the data, and it's now complete. Okay, so now if we go back into Wave and do a refresh, what we should see is, so doing a refresh, going to data sets, we should see Trade Show Opti listed there. And if we go ahead and drill into this data set inside of Wave, and if we look at expected usage, again, you'll see we don't see all the values that were in the original trade show file. We only see the 3 buckets that we've designated because of the data preparation that we went through with Informatica Rev. Okay, so again, got data that's out there. You want your end users to start looking at that inside of Wave. There's no faster, better way of getting the data in and doing preparation than Informatica Rev. All right, so that's kind of phase 1 of the 5 steps. Now, what happens when we actually want to go ahead and move forward with moving some of this stuff into production? We've pulled from some flat files, but maybe we want to pull directly from, let's say, the marketing operations system, or pull directly from an ERP system. What do we do there? What I'm going to do is actually start showing you Informatica Cloud. And this is usually when you need to bring in the core IT folks, and they want to be involved, and we want to make sure this is maintained on an ongoing basis in production. So I'm going to log into Informatica Cloud now. So here you see I'm at www.informatica.com/cloud. And I go ahead and I'm going to log in to my account. Okay, so FYI, we actually are going through our pre-release now. We've got a release that's coming out here in February, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end to talk about that. Okay, so here I'm inside of Informatica Cloud. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull data from a back-end ERP system. I'm actually going to pull data directly from SAP, and I'll show you how quickly you can do that and load that data into Wave. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and use what's known as the data synchronization capability inside of Informatica Cloud. So I'm going to create a new task, and I'm going to call this my SAP webinar demo. And I'm going to perform an insert of that data into Wave. Now, first off, here on the screen, what you basically see is a very simple 6-step wizard where you can just go ahead and grab your data, determine where you're going to load it, add some data filters, do real transformation rules. This is leveraging full-blown Informatica technology to do transformations. And then we can schedule these to run on a recurring basis. So I move on to step 2, and I can pull data directly from SAP. So I'm going to go ahead and grab and point to my SAP connector. If I wanted to connect to other systems, if I click on New, you see we have the ability to connect to all sorts of different applications, on-premise databases, other applications that are on-premise or in the cloud. Again, you see a whole host of various things that are out there. But again, I've already got my SAP connector created, and I'm going to connect directly to my demo SAP instance that's available to me. I can do, if I know the actual SAP object name, I can pull directly from that, or I can do a search based off of the SAP business description or the labels. I'm going to grab what's known as a sales document order data, I think is what it's called. Order header. Let's try this. I always forget what the name is. All right, I know what it is. It's actually called VBAC. This is, for anybody that's familiar with SAP, this is a very commonly used object, sales document header data. Sorry. And what this is, it basically contains your header data for all orders inside of SAP. So I go ahead and click that, hit select, and essentially what we've done is we've basically made SAP look relational. You're essentially looking at the table that contains that data. So now I can move forward and move on to step 3, where I choose my target. So I've picked my SAP object. I want to load that data into Wave. So I'm going to choose my Analytics Cloud connection, and I'm going to load that into a schema that contains my SAP order header. Step 4, this is an optional step. If I wanted to add data filters, I can, but I'm going to skip that for now. And step 5 is where I go to the field mapping screen. So how does the data move from SAP into Wave? So what I can do is just pick and choose the fields that I'm interested in and simply drag and drop them onto the various fields inside of Wave. And it really is this straightforward. Just pick the fields you want and go ahead and copy them over. Now, this is not just a data mapping tool. This is a full-blown integration solution. So if I wanted to, I can click on my function icon here. And for anybody that's familiar with core Informatica and maybe our on-premise technologies, these are the same transformation functions that are available in our core enterprise solution, but made available here inside of Informatica Cloud. So again, we've got a whole host of various functions that are available. But for this demo for now, I'm just going to move the data over. So I move on to the last step, step 6, my scheduling screen. If I wanted to, and if I had existing schedules, I can just pick and choose them, or I could create new schedules. Start date, time, how often you want these things to repeat, right? Maybe it's every 5 minutes, every hour. Maybe if I want to do things on a monthly basis, it's the first Monday of every month, the last Friday, so forth. But for this demo, I just want to run it manually, so I'm not going to assign it to a schedule, and I can simply now hit Save and Run. So what we're actually doing here live is connecting directly to my SAP instance, grabbing my order header data, and converting that using our native connectivity to Salesforce Wave into what's known as native Wave data sets. And just like that, you see we've gone ahead and loaded 7,000 rows from SAP into Wave. So now if I go into this demo instance of Wave and do a refresh, what you'll see here listed under my data sets is my SAP order header data. And if I click on that, we see the 7.1K rows that have just been loaded into Wave. Right, so again, get started really quickly. The Informatica Rev, flat file, Salesforce. This even applies to SAP, and we can do this on a recurring basis through scheduling and again, have the IT folks be able to monitor this going forward. Now, before I finish off, I do want to show you one more quick demo. I'm going to go ahead and show you some mapping capabilities. So data synchronization, the wizard I just went through, really great for very simple use cases. Straightforward, got some objects, move it over. But for those of you that are, maybe embarking on again, a really complex integration solution for analytics, you may want something that's a bit more powerful than the wizard that I just showed you. So here I'm going to show you a mapping. And if I click OK, what comes up is a screen that any of you that may have familiarity with some of the traditional data integration solutions that are out there, this should look very familiar to you. You've got a list of transformations on the left, a palette here in the middle where you can combine all these transformations together. Anybody familiar with Informatica on-premise, again, very similar paradigm that we're using here, but in the cloud. So this example that I'm going to show you really quickly is taking data from an enterprise data warehouse and just simply taking a cut of the data warehouse, loading that data into Wave. This is a very powerful way of getting started with Wave. Take data that the customers, your end users, are already used to looking at, but maybe in a legacy BI tool, and showing them the new look and feel and new capabilities inside of Salesforce Wave. Again, you can get started very, very quickly using this approach. So very fast here, I'm just going to pull in a source. My source is going to be, I'm going to pull directly from my SQL data warehouse, and I'm going to grab essentially what's known as my full star schema. It's a reporting database. That's what you basically call the analytics schema inside of a data warehouse. And a data warehouse is typically driven off of what's known as a fact table. This has all of your measures in it. So I'm going to choose my opportunity fact table. And now I can also go ahead and choose all related objects. And I'm now picking what's known as my dimension table. So Informatica Cloud automatically recognizes for that fact table, these are all the related tables that surround that fact table. So going ahead and clicking OK, what we've basically done is taken the full contents of that data warehouse. We've done what's known as you've denormalized the data into one large data set, and the data is now ready to be loaded into Salesforce Wave. So very, very fast, very easy. We can go ahead and get started there. And then from there, we can go ahead and tie together, again, multiple transformations if we wanted to do that, and do your data loads into Wave. I'm not going to go ahead and finish this demo just for the sake of time. Instead, what I'm going to go ahead and show you is a pre-built mapping. So let's go ahead and show you something there. Okay, so let's log back in there. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to show you this mapping here. If we go ahead and take a look at this, this is essentially building off of my first demo here, where instead of just grabbing the order header data, this particular mapping is going and grabbing the full order detail, and it's basically getting my order history using something that's known as your BAPI call in SAP. It's then taking that SAP data, joining it to the Salesforce user object to get the sales rep data. It's getting essentially your group or your territory information, and it's also joining together the opportunity data and joining it with your sales orders. So it's going through this transformation process, unioning everything together, doing some transformations, and loading that data into Salesforce Wave. So I'm going to go ahead and save and run this. And this will be my SAP to Wave. And again, now using that more complex mapping, we're going off, connecting directly to my SAP instance. We are grabbing the order detail information. We have done some joins and lookups into Salesforce to append all of the sales rep and territory information, putting it into the native format for Salesforce Wave, and we're going ahead and doing the data load in. Okay, it should be complete here in just a second. Okay, it's gone ahead and finished. And now if I go back into Wave, again, let's go ahead and do a refresh. And what we should see here, yep, this just got updated, SAP Order Opportunity Detail. We see the 122 rows that are loaded. Okay, so again, just to recap, so if you needed to get started from a prototyping standpoint, get the data loaded as quickly as you can. Really, again, I don't believe there's a faster or easier way of getting the data in than through Informatica Rev. But as you start to move into a productionized environment, potentially you might need to do some data loads on a recurring basis, maybe even running it hourly so that your end users are being able to see refresh data as quickly as possible inside of Salesforce Wave. That's where Informatica Cloud would come in. Again, the rest of the different steps, data quality, multi-org consolidation for Salesforce orgs, and even the full-blown MDM capabilities that Informatica provides, that's probably a whole nother webinar altogether. Potentially we'll do that here in the future as more of you start to move down these phases. All right, so with that, let's go back to the slides and kind of wrap things up. Anwesa, any questions that are out there that we should address at this point?
Yes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box, question box. So we have two. One is the Salesforce Wave connector different to a standard Salesforce connector?
Yeah, it's a great question. With Informatica Cloud, we do provide connectivity, of course, to Salesforce, the core Salesforce application. But what you'll notice is we do have Salesforce, and we also have Salesforce Analytics. So they are two different connectors. Although they are both pointing to the same common service URL, we decided to create a separate connector for Salesforce Wave. The main reason for that is Wave is a new product and is evolving very, very quickly. So Salesforce is doing a very good job of keeping Salesforce Wave current and adding new functionality as quickly as they can. So to make sure that we maintain the same amount of flexibility and agility, we decided to break out the Salesforce Analytics connector as a separate connector so that we can update this also as quickly as possible. So as new features are added to the Wave piece by itself, we're able to update our connector very quickly without having to worry about potentially affecting anybody that's connecting to just standard Salesforce. So just to make sure that they're decoupled, not tied together, it allows us to be more agile. We've created this separate connector.
All right. Thank you, Ron. There's a second question, and it's about how is the customer data secured? How is that arranged?
Yes.
Do you have any? Yeah.
We've actually got a whole set of documentation around that on how we deal with the data. We have various ways of making sure that the data stays secure. Again, we are following all standard best practices around using SSL, data encryption. We use compression, of course, just as far as from a performance standpoint, going through all certifications for Informatica Cloud and Informatica Rev. So definitely that's probably a whole another conversation that we could have. If you have any follow-ups, please definitely reach out to us directly. But absolutely, security is paramount to everything that we do, and it's all built into the products.
All right, so those are the two questions for now, and let's keep going. If you have questions in the audience, please put it out in the chat box, and we'll try to address it. We'll keep some time towards the end.
Great. All right, so we do have a new set of bundles and a whole area on our website that's specific to what we're doing with Salesforce Wave. So you should see this inside of the webinar in the attachments and links. You should see this link listed there. And if we go ahead and take a look at that, again, some of the demos that I actually just showed you are made available on this site. So here you have the ability to go ahead and get started with a free trial of everything that I just showed you directly from this page. Again, we've got demos and more information. We also have new bundles that we've released very specifically for Salesforce Wave. So let's go ahead and bring up a slide that talks about that. Okay, and what we wanted to do here is come up with the ability, especially for those of you that want to get started as quickly as you can with Wave, we want to make sure that you're able to do that with Informatica. And so we've created these bundles that are out there to give you what you need when you need it. So you can start off on the far left and then move forward as you move into production and start looking at the offerings on the right-hand side of the page. All this detailed information, again, is available on the site that I just brought up. So please go ahead and take a look at that. Again, these are brand new, fresh out the press. These are new bundles that we just released. So please feel free to have a look on the website. And again, full trials are available, free trials are available for these offerings. Again, to wrap it up, Informatica Cloud really is the best solution when you're dealing with data loads into Informatica or Salesforce Wave. Most comprehensive platform. We can connect to pretty much anything that you want on-premise and other cloud applications. We've got solutions for whether you're a Salesforce administrator, somebody in corporate IT, or even business users, solutions that help you get going with the Salesforce Wave project. And of course, with Informatica, it is a platform that you can trust. We've been around for over 20 years as a company, have been focused on enterprise data integration, as the leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrants for all sorts of different things. And I think a lot of these numbers also speak for themselves. Over 3,500 customers using Informatica Cloud. Got all sorts of agreements with major OEM partners. We've had a 95% renewal rate. And I think this number down at the bottom right is the one that I'm most impressed about. 300 billion transactions a month for data loading is being done through Informatica Cloud. Actually, I think this number is probably low. This number grows at a rate of about 10% month over month. So depending on when we created the slide, this number is likely fairly low. And with that, again, on the webinar tab, you should see these links as well as the resources that are available to you there. You'll also get an email with this information as a follow-up for those of you that attended the webinar live or have registered even to view.
Thank you again for attending, and we do hope that this is going to be useful for you. Thank you, Ron. Anything from your side?
No, I think that's about it. Thanks, Anwesa.
All right. Thank you.